Let's go, everyone. Buster Boom series is back.
We're back.
This is how you know we've done a full year. Back with Giants Buster Boom, already 2021-22 content coming to you guys. If you guys are new to the channel or old channel, you know the Buster Boom series where we break down each NFL team for the 2021 NFL season, talking about key players, what they did in free agency / trades, who they drafted, and giving our record prediction. Obviously, me and Charlie are Giants fans, so whenever it's team breakdowns, the Giants always come first for us. So do make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let us know if you're a Giants fan in the comments down below. Basically, we're going to give you a preview for what the Giants should look like for next season. Really, you guys loved this series last year, so we'll be continuing to pump this out. Since this is the first video, we basically will at least try to get every single NFL team, all 32, preview for each of them before the season begins. So make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you do not miss a video on that. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
So getting into our first key players, our first player is Daniel Jones. I think this is an obvious one for most teams. There is going to be a quarterback, probably the first player. And I think Daniel Jones more than others because we need to see, of course, he didn't have a big enough improvement in his second season from his first for them to be completely sold on him and to keep him for the next 10 years. And he needs to have a big step up. I'm not saying he needs to have a Josh Allen kind of step. Josh Allen was a potential MVP last year. But I think that he needs to have Josh Allen-esque improvements. He needs to do a lot better. And, I mean, he's been surrounded by the weapons. I mean, Keen, do you think he's going to be able to make that step?
Yeah, I think, especially as a Giants fan, it's a make or break season. I think we all know that 30 years, I guess. We've all said it. Dylan said it. It's I guess, the 30-year rule. It's the quarterback here. It's third year. Can you do it unless some other situation, rare situation where it's not like, I don't know. I mean, you've seen with other quarterbacks. But, I mean, Charlie, we were even saying during the draft, like, Justin Fields was there, and I was like, if you're taking him there, I'm all in. Like, if the Giants take Justin Fields, I'm all in. Obviously, we didn't. We trade down, and we'll talk about the player they drafted there later. But I think it's a make or break season. I think all NFL fans know that for Daniel Jones. I think the amount of kind of not hate, but kind of slander that's gone around Daniel Jones is fair. I mean, at the end of the day, this guy has not performed for where he was taken. We've seen what he can do. I just think the goods for him are also bads. He doesn't notice pressure very well, which is good because he keeps his eyes downfield. He's looking at his progressions. He's looking at players get open, but also you don't feel pressure and you're seeing a guy who fumbles so much. So I think for Daniel Jones to make or break year, again, you kind of got a new system. You have weapons coming in. We will address all of those soon. And I think it's a make or break year. I think everyone knows that. I've said that several times. It's a make or break year, Daniel Jones. If you're watching this, please perform for us. Bring us somewhere.
I pray that you have a Josh Allen season. Win MVP this year.
That would be, if that happened, there's no way.
That would be amazing. Please.
But all right, we'll move on. Mr. Injury Prone, I guess, Charlie, is what we can say. Saquon Barkley, what is the impact for him this year if he can stay healthy and stay on the field for at least 15, 16 games?
I think that arguably, Saquon Barkley is the most talented running back in the NFL right now. He is the most explosive running back in the NFL, and I think that his impact when he's healthy is unlike any other running back aside from maybe McCaffrey and Derrick Henry. I think that we've seen the impact that McCaffrey can have on a game. He can have 4 touchdowns in a game. Derrick Henry the same, all on the ground. Teams have to load the box against him. But Saquon Barkley's kind of a mix of the two. He's not as big and not as powerful as Derrick Henry, but he's also not as much of a pass-catching back as McCaffrey. He's a very, very good mix of the both. And I think that Saquon Barkley, when he's healthy, we saw him go for 1,000 rushing and 1,000... We saw him go for over 2,000 yards from scrimmage around that, I think, in his rookie season. And then injuries plagued him. And I think if he can avoid injuries, then he's going to make the Giants' offense a force. We saw them add in other key players, other key additions. And if he's going to distract defenses, make them keep 7, maybe even 8 players in the box routinely, that's going to open up so much space for Daniel Jones to have that step up that he needs.
Look, man, again, it's another player for the Giants that this is a big year for him. Got that injury against the Bears and really kind of that eliminated the run game for the Giants. I think Gallman picked it up well enough. Guy's a perfect build, 6 feet. his calves are ginormous. This guy can't get tackled, and I think has production receiving and catching, or not receiving, catching, receiving and rushing wise. And I think in the conversation when this guy is healthy, he is right up there with CMC and Derrick Henry. And I think that's, as you said, Charlie, just undeniable. I mean, this guy is a playmaker on and off the field. I don't know how that works, but he's a guy good in the locker room, good on the field. But I love it. I mean, I think you're going into the season again. Offensive line's a big need. I think we saw him play very well with an offensive line his rookie year that was not that good. But I think it's set up for him. You have offensive weapons, as you said, that can get downfield and hopefully take some players out of the box. And if not, Saquon keeps those players in the box and they will get open. So I think this Giants offense has so many weapons. And back to Daniel Jones, there's just so many weapons for all of these players, the coaching staff to work with. So I think Saquon Barkley should have a good year. Can he stay healthy? I really hope so. Hopefully he's made a successful recovery from that ACL injury. But, players are not the same, unfortunately, a lot of the time after ACL injury. So we'll see how that pans out.
ACL injury is an ACL injury. It's not just a sprained ankle or whatever it is. But if we want to move on to our third key player, that's Evan Engram. Now, Engram, we all know had a shaky year last year. He was somehow nominated for the Pro Bowl, which I think we expressed our disgust for that multiple times in videos. But Keen, do you think he was worth keeping?
I mean, I think there's an argument. I mean, Evan Engram, at the end of the day, Evan Ingram's good. He's young. He's a tight end. I mean, can he catch the ball? Sometimes. I guess that's good. But we have other receivers who can catch it. So, I mean, look, I think the highlight of the year, unfortunately, I'm not trying to be that guy, but the highlight of the year when I think of Evan Engram is a drop against the Eagles. I'm sorry. I don't see this guy being a Pro Bowler over Robert Tonyan, who was the main kind of competitor with him for that spot. I don't see it. I think Evan Engram, again, really this Giants team, another guy who can, if he performs this year, all right, we can keep you. We have Kyle Rudolph, who's an older guy, I guess, so that's not as much competition. But I think looking at what we've seen from Evan Engram blocking wise, he has the size, he has the hands when he wants, and can be a game changer. I think, again, he gives Daniel Jones another weapon. So, I think moving on from him, you probably would have got a second or third rounder. So I think keeping him was worth it, unless Kyle Pitts had fallen, which he didn't. So I'm happy with Evan Engram. I mean, I like him as a tight end. He's one of the better tight ends, I guess, in the league. A Pro Bowler, as you said. So
yeah, I completely agree. Evan Ingram's speed at tight end is completely game changing. I think while his hands are not the best, he doesn't have Travis Kelce hands. He doesn't have Darren Waller hands. He's not George Kittle, but when you can get the ball in his hands, we've seen him make plays after the catch, and that's when he's the best, when he's after the catch, because if he's one-on-one with a linebacker, he's going to beat him with the speed, unless he's going up against, like, Devin White. So I think he was worth keeping around. I think you got to keep going with him. I know he hasn't really proven himself, but he's had flashes.
All right, so Charlie, offensive line obviously been a problem with the Giants for, I'd say, the past 5 years. And really, if you watch or continue to watch Buster Series, we generally won't talk about offensive line as much. But for the Giants, again, it's a year you got to step up. You have Andrew Thomas, second-year tackle, who was good at the end of the year. That's good, but, passing up on Tristan Wirfs. I mean, we'll see an offensive line that I think with Saquon Barkley back, hopefully we'll see more run game, so more of what this offensive line can do. I would love to see a lot of dragging connects, getting that left tackle out to the right side, getting Saquon outside of the, can Saquon get outside of the tackles? Can he go inside? I think Shane Lemieux, someone we talked about a lot. I loved him at center. You have Matt Pert, who is just a huge guy, I believe like 6'6", 6'7", so he has potential. Again, injuries are always a concern for someone of that size. But, I think it's an offensive line that has potential. I personally think it's one more piece away from being, a good offensive line like the other New York team we see with the Jets, where they have, kind of that really solidified left side. But I think if Andrew Thomas makes a step up, it'll be huge for Saquon, it'll be huge for Daniel Jones, and really for this whole offense, because without a good offensive line, there's really not a lot of room for this team to improve. Yeah,
for sure. I think that I don't want to get too much into the draft yet, but I think that there were a lot of questions, even I've asked myself, like, why didn't the Giants draft offensive line? Because we saw them trade down to pick 20, and Christian Darrisaw, surprisingly enough, was on the board. And I think that Christian Darrisaw would have been a massive asset to this Giants team. That it's a struggling offensive line. And I know they've got last year they had 3 rookies, Thomas, Lemieux, and Pert, and they'll all be second years, and hopefully we'll see big improvements. And I think that their reasoning behind not drafting offensive line and going somewhere else instead, even in the second round, I think they could have gone offensive line. We saw still big players on the board in the second round, but I think that these players, that if Daniel Jones does have a bad season this year, which it's possible, it's very possible.
I think it's
at this point, it's probably probable.
Yeah.
And I think that if they do end up, and if Daniel Jones does have a bad year this year, they will most likely end up drafting a quarterback next year. And at that point, these three young offensive linemen will all be third-year offensive linemen, plus Will Hernandez. That's a good offensive line, assuming they keep up their development, they keep playing well. So then you're bringing in a rookie quarterback next year who has a good offensive line to develop behind, something that unfortunately they couldn't give Daniel Jones. And I think that's a main reason for his failures so far. They couldn't give that to Jones, and I think that this offensive line this year is an improvement. They're trying to give Jones as much as he can, but I think that it's not an up to par an offensive line. It's a below average offensive line right now.
Defense for the Giants is good, and I think really I'm excited. We saw them bring in Adoree Jackson, who we'll talk about later, but we saw James Bradberry, who I love. I think this guy's a top 5 corner. I've said that over and over again. There's bias, I'll tell you that, but I think this guy's talented. You obviously have Darnay Holmes, or me and Charlie were ecstatic that they got, what round was that, fifth round last year, fifth round, I'm not sure, out of use. Yeah, steal. UCLA slot, who was good, at least didn't show a ton of weaknesses last year. I don't think we saw a lot of great things. And someone who I love, Xavier McKinney. And I think I'm highlighting a lot of the secondary because I think that's what's going to be huge for them. Obviously, they lost Tomlinson, so that defensive line isn't as strong. And one of the things we need to talk about is how is that going to be without him? But this secondary is going to be huge. What I was talking about, what I was advocating for is move Logan Ryan back to his natural cornerback spot, give Xavier McKinney that position at, I believe, strong safety or free safety where Logan Ryan was, free safety, and see what Xavier McKinney can do. I love that pick against the Cowboys. I think this guy's really talented. Obviously didn't play for a lot of the beginning of the year due to injury concerns. I think he's talented, and I think this Giants defense can be very good. The defensive line, I think, can step up. We re-sign Leonard Williams smart. You let Tomlinson go, I guess we didn't have the money and wasn't as much of an important piece on that line. So I think this defense really has potential to be top 10, and I think arguably going into the season they are already top 10. But Charlie, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this defense?
I think the Giants defense is a really well-rounded team. I think that aside from linebacker's probably the biggest weakness on this team, but we saw Blake Martinez was incredible last year. I think he should have been a Pro Bowler. Could have taken Evan Engram's spot.
Yeah, I forgot about it.
But I think that we need to see the Giants have more assets in their secondary, a lot more assets in their secondary than they do in the box in their front seven. Their outside linebackers, not super strong. I believe it'll probably be Kyler Fackrell.
Maybe Ragland or Anderson, 2 free agents they brought in.
And Ragland or Anderson potentially. I think that with 3 good safeties, I think that right now Logan Ryan doesn't need to be moved back to corner because we have James Bradberry and Adoree Jackson locking down either side with Darnay Holmes in the slot. So I don't think Logan Ryan needs to be moved back to corner. If they want to, they can. But we saw good things from both Bradberry and Darnay Holmes last season, and Adoree Jackson as well, all the way on the Titans though. But I think, obviously playing with 3 safeties isn't really a viable option. So I think that you take the biggest, the best tackler, and that's, in my opinion, Jabril Peppers, and you move him to an outside linebacker spot. McKinney and Logan Ryan are both much better in the air, both better ball trackers than Peppers, better with interceptions and knocking down the ball if it gets to them. I think that you move Jabril Peppers into a linebacker spot where he can use the help at linebacker right now. You move him into a linebacker spot, and he can have a bigger impact with 3 safeties who are 3 great players. We can put them all on the field at the same time. We saw bright things from McKinney at the end of last season. Obviously, he was hurt for the beginning, but we saw him get an interception late game. It wasn't an important interception, but he did get one. That's good to see. Logan Ryan, we know he's already proven himself. Jabril Peppers has been shaky, but I think, and with injuries as well, but I think moving him to a linebacker spot better suits the Giants' defense right now.
All right, defensive preview out of the way. Now we go to free agent pickups. Hopefully the players we have brought in to improve this team, and the one me and Charlie nailed on the head. Kenny Golladay, we predicted the exact amount of years he would be signed to, the exact amount of money, 4 years, $72 million deal. Go check that out. We posted about that. Obviously, we were so happy. I mean, Charlie, we were so happy to see this guy brought in. Really was questionable. I forgot what, I believe the Bengals were in the race for him, but it was looking kind of like, the Giants might not get him. They got him. I was downstairs, recorded in my basement. So happy about that signing. I think this guy brings aerial threat. 27, so he's in his prime. And, you know, we signed him to a deal that I think he deserves. And I think he steps in immediately as a wide receiver 1. I would like to hear your opinion on that, Charlie. But I think he steps in as that wide receiver 1 and that immediately number 1 guy who Daniel Jones can consistently trust down the field in air ball, threats, jumping up against corners. I think this guy is dominant. I believe he almost had a 50% success rate catching it in the air. It might actually have been higher. This guy's talented. I think he's an immediate game changer for this Giants offense.
Yeah, no, I think it's not even a question whether or not he steps into the number 1 role. I think that Kenny Golladay right now is potentially probably a top 10 receiver in the NFL. When he's healthy, he's incredible. We saw him with a not so great Detroit Lions roster, and he was hurt last year, but the year before he was incredible. It's not so much can he perform with a not great quarterback. That's the reason he was brought in. The reason he was brought in is to perform with that not great quarterback. I think that even if Daniel Jones is to not succeed, Golladay is that guy who, with your rookie quarterback, that's how you improve your rookie quarterback. You give him weapons. Now,
comparing Daniel Jones to a rookie.
Hard, it's tough to do. But I think Daniel Jones, adding someone like Kenny Golladay, that's the reason they did it. So that they're trying to give Daniel Jones all the tools he can get to succeed. We're going to say that a lot. But it's true. There's nothing more true with the Giants team this year. The question with Golladay stepping into number 1 role isn't so much Golladay and the number 1 role, but it's when you look at the Giants receiving depth. With last year with Shepard, Slayton as the 1 and 2 receivers on the team, that's a pretty weak 1-2 for most teams in the NFL. We see most other teams are better than that. I'd say 90% of teams have better 1-2s than that. But with Shepard and Slayton as the 2-3, I'd say they're better at the 2-3 than 90% of teams in the NFL's 2-3s. And Golladay at number 1, I think it just seals up a pretty incredible receiving core. We saw what Slayton did in his rookie year. Shepard has had flashes of good moments, and I just think that Golladay coming into the team, it's a massive move for the Giants. But if we want to move on to the second option we talked about a little bit earlier, Adoree Jackson, good slot corner, but will he play slot? Will he play on the edge or on the outside, since we have Darnay Holmes playing the slot last year? But what do you think?
Yeah, I think this guy will be used as much of a I guess kind of gadget in that secondary. I think this guy is speedy. He's young. But I think a kind of a signing that Giants fans looked at and were like, oh my God, great signing. Oh my God, this guy's going to be amazing. You know, pump the brakes. This guy doesn't have a lot of interceptions, is not incredibly proven, and was destroyed this year when he was put in. Obviously, against the Packers, against Devontae Adams, not many corners can defend against him. So I'm not going to say that. But this guy is, again, another injury-prone guy. Like this Giants team is really like can fall apart like that if injuries start to occur. Obviously, it's not a COVID season, I guess you could say, anymore. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But I mean, again, speedy, versatile guy. I think when coached right, and if he can play a full season, I think he'll be really good. For the money he was given, this guy should play up to that. Again, we'll see. But I think it's a good signing. I mean, you got a corner, one of the better corners in that free agent market. And I think you got him quite late. So I think they may have had to pay more if there was more of a bidding war. They ended up still paying a good amount, but I think Adoree Jackson really is that they're going to be their staple, I guess, or they're really, really talented young secondary playmaker.
If you want to move into the draft now, it was when we saw this first round pick 11, I got super excited. I was ready to see who they were going to take. Wasn't sure who it was going to be, and then they traded it. I was kind of disappointed at the time. But the more and more I think you look at this pick, the more and more it makes sense. They obviously drafted Kadarius Toney with that first round pick, who it was a bit of a head scratcher at the time. I was very disappointed with guys like Christian Darrisaw, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah on the board. I think that, again, the longer you look at it, the more it makes sense. The Giants were able to obtain another first round pick next year, which is massive. It's really big for improving that team if Daniel Jones succeeds. If Daniel Jones doesn't succeed, it's 2 first round picks next year is massive. And Kadarius Toney is a playmaker. He is I'm not going to compare him to Tyreek Hill here. Tyreek Hill is out of his league, but he is a Tyreek Hill kind of player. He is just an offensive weapon, and that's kind of what the Giants were missing. They've got an amazing running back in Saquon Barkley, an amazing number 1 receiver in Kenny Golladay, but they don't have that small, fast, shifty, good on the ball receiver like Kadarius Toney, who can play like a Tyreek Hill, like a Mecole Hardman, you know? So I think Kadarius Toney, it makes sense. That pick, he's very, very good with the ball. His moves are incredible. He could play punt returner for the Giants. I think it's a very good player to add.
Yeah, I mean, the longer you dwell on this pick, the more you like it. I mean, all I'm gonna say is Daniel Jones, you got it all. Kadarius Toney is a talented playmaker, an electric playmaker with the ball. Without the ball, can create separation. And I think what really stands out is his releases are really something that you don't see a lot. This guy, for his size, releasing off the ball can create separation like that immediately. And then with the speed he has, you get him in open field, this guy is gone. I think Kadarius Toney, again, I know we don't have the greatest quarterback, but if he can get the ball, I think Daniel Jones just has so many options now that Kadarius Toney will get the ball and will be very, very talented. But moving on to our second round pick. This was a good one at the time. We were happy about this. Azeez Ojulari, edge, Georgia. Arguably, a lot of people had him as their best edge in the class, top 3. I believe Surge had him at 3 when we did our top 5 edge video. He is a beast, can play outside, can play outside linebacker, edge. I think this guy's talented. I think for as much as we needed that defensive lineman, obviously he's not a tackle, but he kind of fills in terms of just getting another good defensive lineman in Dalvin Tomlinson's absence. But I think he'll make a lot of sense there on that defensive line. I think that we can use him in a way that not a lot of edges / pass rushers can be used in the NFL.
Yeah, no, again, when Ojulari was picked, I was kind of pissed when they picked him. I like Ojulari, but again, the exact same player was still on the board as that first round pick. Koromoa was on the board, and I was waiting and waiting for Goodell to call his name, and it just didn't happen. Wanted him in the first round, second round, third round, just didn't happen. But Ojulari, he's a great player. Will he fill in at edge, outside linebacker? We obviously need more help at outside linebacker, but with Tomlinson gone, does Dexter Lawrence step into the middle, freeing up a spot on the edge for Ojulari? I don't know. I think he can play either edge or outside linebacker. He's a good weapon on the defense. I like the pick. But if you want to move in on to, I think it was a productive draft for the Giants this year, 2 trade downs. Or I think more than that even.
Yeah,
to the last part of this video. It's already wrapping up, but our record predictions for this season. Obviously, new 17-game season, so we can't just say 8-8. But Keen, what do you think?
I'm thinking 9-8. I was thinking 500, but obviously the NFL decides to add another weekend, so I think 9-8. Maybe 8-9. I don't know. I think, but 9-8 is my prediction. I think Daniel Jones plays well enough to get us some wins. I think this offense, assuming that we don't have too many injuries, I think this team can make it to the playoffs. I think this team can compete for their division. Can they make it past first round? Have to see. But I think this Giants team will be good. Is it optimism from a Giants fan? It could be. Hopefully we don't tank, but I think we're looking pretty good for this season, at least offensively. I think offensively and defensively, like if you look at this team is one of the best teams in the NFL, and I'm genuinely serious with that. Besides quarterback, which I know is a gigantic deal, this team has weapons, 4 good receivers, 4 good corners, very good defensive line, offensive line that's all right. We have some good pieces, a good coach, a very, 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 very good running back. I don't see what else, but obviously that quarterback, I mean, we've literally touched on Daniel Jones probably 500 times, but it's really depending on him, Mr. Duke, so we'll see.
Yeah, so you got him at 9-8. I feel like I'm always optimistic with the Giants record. Maybe that's just because I'm a Giants fan. Maybe that's looking at their schedule and saying, well, that's definitely a team they can beat, and then they don't. But I think that the Giants could have anywhere this season from like 6 to 10 wins. I think if all goes well, Daniel Jones is having an MVP season like Josh Allen did last season. They could even get 11, 12 wins. We saw the improvement the Bills had last season. But I'm going to go with 8 wins, 8 and 9. I think they're probably not going to get under 6 wins because this team, again, had 6 wins, I think, last season, and they've improved. So I think that the least they'll get is probably a 6-11, but I think that the most they'll probably get is 10 wins. So I'm going pretty much right in the middle, 8 and 9. I think it's a fair pick for the Giants. Again, I was going to go around 500, but can't go 500 anymore. But yeah. That's it. 9 and 8, 8 and 9.
The New York Giants GMEN please prove us wrong. I don't know, win more. Daniel Jones play well.
Win
we'll
more.
see. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to the end, do make sure to subscribe. Long video, so hopefully you guys did like the analysis. We will see you in the next one. Follow us on social media at The Sports Scoop, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to the channel. Like the video, turn on post notifications. More Busted Boom videos to come. It is June. The series is coming. We will see you in our next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.